6 months had passed since the confrontation between humans and the Vorthic Empire, and everything had changed completely. Former warlord Kethver sat in what had once been his command chamber, but now served as a comfortable office. The harsh red lighting had been replaced with warm natural illumination that did not hurt the eyes. Plants from dozens of different worlds grew in carefully maintained gardens along the walls. The air smelled fresh and clean instead of the metallic scent of weapons and war machines. Kethver spent his days reviewing agricultural reports instead of planning military campaigns against helpless species. Ambassador Carol Wright knocked gently on the doorframe and entered with her usual morning greeting. She asked how the agricultural reports were progressing and whether there were any problems that needed human assistance. Her voice was kind and patient, like she was talking to an old friend. The former conqueror looked up from his desk, where holographic displays showed crop yields and irrigation systems. These were much more pleasant to study than fleet movements and conquest schedules. He told Ambassador Wright that grain production on the Vorthic homeworld was up 15% this quarter. The vertical farming techniques that humans had taught his people were remarkably efficient and productive. Kethver had never imagined that growing food could be so interesting and rewarding. His species had always taken what they needed from conquered worlds instead of producing it themselves. Ambassador Wright smiled and said this was excellent news for everyone involved. She asked how the other former Empire worlds were adapting to the new arrangements that humans had established. The transition from military dictatorship to cooperative partnership had been challenging for many species. Kethver's mandibles moved in what humans had learned was the Vorthic equivalent of a tired but satisfied smile. He told the ambassador that the adaptation was going better than anyone had expected. It seemed that most species were much more cooperative when you helped them instead of threatening them. Dr. Greg Martinez entered the office with a cup of coffee, prepared exactly the way Kethver liked it. The former warlord had developed a taste for human beverages and found that caffeine helped him focus on his new responsibilities. He accepted the drink gratefully and took a sip. The doctor mentioned that the Zephyrian delegation wanted to discuss expanding their trade agreement to include new medical technology. This was typical of how business was conducted in the post-war galaxy. Species that had once been enemies now competed to offer the best trade deals and technological exchanges. Kethver nodded and said he was not surprised by the Zephyrian request. 300 years of demanding tribute through fear and intimidation, and it had never occurred to the Vorthic to simply ask nicely and offer something useful in return. The old ways seemed incredibly stupid now. Ambassador Wright settled into a comfortable chair across from the former warlord and observed that this was a common mistake among aggressive species. Most civilizations thought that power came from making others afraid of them. But humans had learned long ago that real power came from making others glad you existed. Kethver asked what happened if other species were not glad that humans existed. He already knew the answer, but wanted to hear it confirmed. The question had been bothering him for months as he learned more about human capabilities. Dr. Martinez answered cheerfully that humans made sure those species understood the alternative to cooperation. But he added that humans much preferred the first option because it involved significantly less paperwork and administrative overhead. War was expensive and complicated, while peace was profitable for everyone. Through the large viewport in his office, Kethver could see the former Vorthic flagship orbiting a thriving world. Ships from dozens of species moved in orderly traffic patterns, carrying trade goods and cultural exchanges instead of weapons and conquest forces. The transformation was remarkable. The former warship had been completely converted for peaceful purposes. Its weapons had been turned into mining equipment for asteroid operations. The troop base had become hydroponic gardens that supplied fresh food to the space station. Even the ammunition storage areas now housed research laboratories. Scientists from multiple species worked together on joint projects that benefited everyone involved. Medical researchers shared techniques for treating diseases that affected different alien biologies. Agricultural specialists developed new crops that could grow in harsh environments. Engineers designed better life support systems for space. Habitats. Ambassador Wright noticed Keth 4 looking out the viewport and asked if he had any questions about the transition process. The former warlord had been very cooperative during the changeover, but she knew he still struggled to understand some aspects of human philosophy. Keth 4 said he had been puzzled by something for months and wanted to ask about it. When Admiral Martinez had first demonstrated human capabilities, she could have destroyed the entire Vorthic fleet instantly. The humans clearly had the power to wipe out his species completely. So why had they chosen not to use it? Ambassador Wright was quiet for a moment while she considered how to explain human thinking to an alien mind. Then she smiled and told him that humans had learned something important over their long history of warfare. It was easy to destroy an enemy, but much harder and infinitely more valuable to turn that enemy into a friend, Dr. Martinez added with a grin that humans would have missed out on having the galaxy's best agricultural consultants if they had simply destroyed the Vorthic fleet. His people had transformed farming operations on 17 different worlds, and their expertise was invaluable. The former warlord's 4 eyes focused on the peaceful scene outside his office. Representatives from species that had once been mortal. Enemies now worked together on projects that helped everyone. It was a future that no one could have imagined during the dark days of the Empire. Kethfer asked one final question that had been troubling him. He wanted to know if all human victories were this comfortable for the defeated side. Most species that lost wars faced destruction or permanent subjugation, but the Vorthic had been offered partnership instead. Ambassador Wright and Dr. Martinez exchanged glances before answering. Wright told him that comfortable defeats were only offered to the smart species, the ones who figured out that fighting humans was like fighting a natural disaster that could not be reasoned with or defeated. She explained that the only real option when facing human military power was to learn to work with it instead of against. Its species that made this choice quickly found themselves better off than they had been before the war started. But those who kept fighting usually did not survive to regret their decision. Outside the viewport, a human transport ship docked with the station carrying the next group of interspecies agricultural students. Young people from dozens of worlds came to learn from Vorthic farming experts who had once been feared warriors. The galaxy's most feared species had indeed met humans and regretted it initially, but most of them now agreed that the encounter had been the best thing that ever happened to their civilization. They had learned that there were better ways to achieve greatness than through conquest and fear. It was much more pleasant and profitable to be part of the human sphere of influence than to be an obstacle to human expansion. The Vorthic had discovered that cooperation produced better results than domination, and everyone involved was happier with the new arrangements that humans had established. 5 years had passed since Jake found Luna in the forest. The scared little girl with golden eyes had grown into a bright 11-year-old who could speak English as well as any human child. She still had her pale blue skin and silver hair, but now she wore it in braids, like the other girls at school. Jake sat at his kitchen table, watching Luna do her homework. She was working on math problems that were meant for high school students, but she found them easy. Her mind worked differently than human minds. She could see patterns and solve problems in ways that amazed Jake every day. Papa, Luna said, looking up from her books. She had started calling him Papa when she was 7, and it still made Jake's heart feel warm. Can you help me with this word problem? I understand the math, but I don't understand why the person in the story needs to buy so many apples." Jake laughed. "Let me see." He looked at the problem. "Well, maybe they're having a big party, or maybe they want to make apple pies to sell." Luna nodded seriously. "Humans do many things that seem strange to me sometimes." Over the years, Luna had learned to fit in with human society, but she still saw the world through different eyes. She noticed things other people missed. She could tell when someone was sad, even when they were smiling. She could fix broken machines just by touching them and listening to the sounds they made. Jake had learned to help her hide these special abilities. The world was not ready to know about Luna's true nature. They had created a story about her being adopted from a foreign country and having a rare genetic condition that made her skin and hair different. Most people in their small town had accepted this story. Mrs. Betty Rodriguez, their elderly neighbor, had been especially kind. She often brought Luna cookies and helped Jake learn how to braid her hair properly. "You're doing a good job raising that girl," Betty had told Jake many times. "She's lucky to have you." But Jake knew he was the lucky one. Luna had filled an empty space in his life that he thought would never be filled again. The first few months after finding Luna had been hard. She had nightmares almost every night. She would wake up crying and speaking in her own language, which Jake had learned was called Zelani. Slowly, through pictures and gestures, Luna had told him about her family. Her people had been traveling in space when their ship was attacked. Luna remembered bright flashes of light and her mother pushing her into a small escape pod. She remembered her mother's face, full of love and fear, as the pod shot away from the main ship. Jake had found the remains of Luna's escape pod and recovered some items from it. There were strange metal tablets covered in Zelani writing, some clothes, and a small device that played soft music when Luna touched it. Jake kept these things safe for her. As Luna grew older, she began to remember more about her people and their culture. She taught Jake some Zelani words and songs. She showed him how her people braided their hair to tell stories about their families. She explained that her full name was Luna Zephyr, which meant moonlight over peaceful waters in her language. Jake learned that the Zelani were a peaceful people who loved art and science. They had been exploring the galaxy for thousands of years, not to conquer other worlds, but to learn and share knowledge. Luna told him they had special abilities that let them understand machines and feel other people's emotions. "My people believe that all living things are connected," Luna explained one day as they walked through the forest. "When I touch a tree, I can feel it growing. When I'm near you, I can feel that you love me, even when you're worried or sad." Jake understood why Luna sometimes seemed to know exactly what he needed. She could sense his moods and always knew how to make him feel better. School had been challenging at first. Luna was much smarter than the other children, and she looked different. Some kids made fun of her blue skin and strange eyes. But Luna was patient and kind, and soon she made friends with children who cared more about her personality than her appearance. Her teacher, Miss Carl White, had been very helpful. She worked with Jake to make sure Luna got the right level of vowel education without drawing too much attention to her advanced abilities. "Luna is gifted," Ms. White had told Jake during a parent conference. "She understands complex ideas very quickly, but she also has a good heart. She helps other students and never makes them feel bad for not being as smart as she is." Jake was proud of how well Luna had adapted to human life while still maintaining her own identity. In their basement, they had set up a workshop where Luna could experiment with electronics and practice her Zelani skills. She had built amazing devices that Jake did not fully understand, but he knew they were far beyond human technology. Luna had also started having dreams that she said felt more like memories. In these dreams, she saw other Zelani who might still be alive somewhere in the galaxy. She dreamed of great ships traveling between stars and beautiful cities on distant planets. "Do you think my birth mother is still alive?" Luna asked Jake. One evening, as they sat by the fireplace, Jake chose his words carefully. "I don't know, sweetheart, but I hope so. I hope she knows that you're safe and loved." Luna nodded and leaned against Jake's shoulder. "Even if I found her, you would still be my papa, right?" "Always," Jake said, hugging her close. "No matter what happens, you will always be my daughter." Jake had worried about this conversation for years. He knew that someday Luna might want to search for her birth family or others of her kind. He also knew that if her people ever came looking for her, he would have to let her go if that was what she wanted. But Luna seemed content with their life together. She was curious about her heritage, but she was also happy being Jake's daughter, and part of their small human community. On weekends, they would go hiking in the forest where Jake had found her. Luna loved being in nature. She said it reminded her of home, though she could not remember much about the planet where she was born. Jake had taught her human skills like fishing and camping. Luna had taught him to see the forest through her eyes, to notice the small connections between all living things. "Papa," Luna said one day as they watched the sunset from a hilltop, "thank you for finding me. Thank you for making me part of your family." Jake felt tears in his eyes. "Thank you for letting me be your father, little star." Luna smiled at the nickname Jake had given her. She truly was his little star, a bright light that had appeared in his life when he needed it most. As they walked home that evening, Jake thought about how much his life had changed. 5 years ago, he had been a lonely man hiding from the world. Now he was a father to an amazing child who saw wonder in everything around her. He did not know what the future would bring, but he knew that whatever challenges came, they would face them together as a family. Luna was 16 now, and Jake was learning that raising a teenage daughter was challenging enough without adding alien abilities to the mix. She sat at the breakfast table, staring out the window with a distant look in her golden eyes that Jake had come to recognize. She was having one of her deep thinking moments. "Another dream last night?" Jake asked as he poured coffee into his mug. Luna nodded slowly. "They're getting stronger, Papa. More clear. I can see faces now, hear voices. I think they might be real memories coming back to me." Jake sat down across from her. Over the past year, Luna's dreams had become more vivid and detailed. She described vast cities floating in space, gardens that grew under artificial suns, and gatherings of Zelani who shared thoughts and emotions like humans shared words. "I saw her again," Luna continued quietly. "My birth mother. She was beautiful, with long silver hair like mine. She was crying as she put me in the escape pod. She said something in Zelani that I finally understood." "What did she say?" "Be strong, my star child. Find those who will love you." Luna looked at Jake with tears in her eyes. She knew she might not see me again. She was saying goodbye. Jake reached across the table and took Luna's hand. Even after all these years, her skin still felt slightly cool to the touch. "I'm sorry, sweetheart. That must be painful to remember. But I also saw other things," Luna said, her voice getting excited. "I saw other ships, other survivors. Papa, I think some of my people might still be alive out there." This was what Jake had been worried about. Luna was at an age where she wanted to understand her identity and find her place in the universe. She had started asking more questions about her origins and expressing interest in trying to contact other ZLANI. The situation became more complicated when Luna developed feelings for Alex Turner, a boy in her chemistry class. Alex was a nice kid, smart and kind, but Jake worried about how a relationship might work between a human and a Zelani, especially when Alex had no idea what Luna really was. Alex asked me to the spring dance, Luna announced one day after school. Jake felt his stomach drop. What did you tell him? I said I would think about it. Luna bit her lip, a habit she had picked up from human friends. Papa, do you think it's wrong for me to like him? We're not the same species. Jake chose his words carefully. Love doesn't follow rules about species or planets, Luna. But relationships are complicated even between humans. You would have to be very careful about your abilities around him. Luna had been struggling more with controlling her empathic powers lately. Strong emotions from the people around her sometimes overwhelmed her. She had learned to create mental barriers, but teenage feelings made everything more intense. The spring dance became a source of tension between Jake and Luna. She wanted to go like a normal teenager, but Jake worried about her abilities acting up in a crowded gymnasium full of emotional teenagers. Their first real fight happened 2 weeks later. Jake had been cleaning Luna's room while she was at school and found a box hidden under her bed. Inside were the metal tablets from her escape pod covered in Zilani writing. Beside them were pages and pages of Luna's attempts to translate the symbols. When Luna came home and found Jake sitting on her bed with the box open, her golden eyes flashed with anger. You went through my private things, she said, her voice cold in a way Jake had never heard before. Luna, I was just cleaning your room. I didn't mean to invade your privacy. Those tablets are mine. They're all I have left of my real family. The words hit Jake like a physical blow. Your real family? Luna immediately looked sorry, but it was too late. Papa, I didn't mean it like that. Yes, you did. Jake stood up, feeling hurt and confused. Luna, I've raised you for 10 years. I've loved you and protected you and tried to give you everything you needed. But you're not my real father, Luna said, tears starting to flow down her blue cheeks. You found me. You took me in because you felt sorry for me. But somewhere out there, my actual parents might still be alive, and I need to know. Jake felt his own anger rising. I kept those tablets safe for you. I've never tried to stop you from learning about your heritage. But I did hide some things, because I was trying to protect you. What things? Jake went to his bedroom and returned with a wooden box he had kept locked in his closet. Inside were more items from Luna's escape pod, including what looked like a communication device and a small data crystal. Luna stared at the objects with wide eyes. You've had these all this time? Papa, this looks like an emergency beacon. My people might have been trying to contact me for years. Or something dangerous might have been trying to track you, Jake said defensively. I didn't know what these things were, or what they might do. I was protecting you. You were keeping me from my people, Luna said, her voice rising. You were? Keeping me from finding out who I really am. You know who you are, Jake said firmly. You're Luna Miller. You're my daughter. You're a member of this family and this community. But I'm also Zilani, Luna said. And you've been trying to make me forget that part of myself. The fight escalated from there. Luna accused Jake of being selfish and wanting to keep her isolated from her own kind. Jake accused Luna of being ungrateful and not appreciating the life they had built together. Finally, Luna ran to her room and slammed the door. Jake heard her packing things, and 20 minutes later, she climbed out her bedroom window and disappeared into the forest. Jake spent 3 days searching for her. He called in favors from other rangers, organized search parties, and even considered contacting the authorities. But Luna had learned forest skills from him, and she also had abilities that made her nearly impossible to track when she didn't want to be found. On the third night, Jake got a call from the police in the next town over. They had found a teenage girl matching Luna's description sitting in a field outside their city limits. She wasn't hurt, but she seemed lost and confused. Jake drove 2 hours to pick her up. When he arrived at the police station, he found Luna sitting in a chair, staring out a window at the stars. She looked smaller and younger than her 16 years. "Luna," Jake said softly. She turned to look at him, and he saw that she had been crying. "Papa, I'm sorry. I didn't know where else to go." Jake hugged her tightly. "I'm sorry too, sweetheart. I should have been honest with you from the beginning." On the drive home, Luna explained what had happened. She had run away intending to try to activate the communication device and contact other Zelani. But when she was alone in the forest with the device in her hands, she realized she was terrified. "What if I contact them and they tell me I don't belong with them either?" Luna said quietly. "What if I'm too human now? What if they take me away? From you and I never fit in anywhere." Jake pulled the car over and turned to face his daughter. "Luna, you will always belong with me. You're my family, no matter what. But you also have the right to know about your heritage and to make contact with your people, if that's what you want." "I want both," Luna whispered. "I want to be your daughter, and I want to know about my birth family." "Is that selfish?" "No," Jake said, stroking her silver hair. "It's human. And it's also very Zelani, from what you've told me about your people valuing connections." When they got home, Jake and Luna spent the whole night working together to translate the Zelani tablets. Luna's language skills had improved greatly over the years, and she was able to read most of the symbols now. The tablets contained star charts, family records, and a message from Luna's birth mother. The message said that whoever found Luna should know that she was loved beyond measure, and that her parents hoped she would find happiness and safety wherever she ended up. "She wanted me to be happy," Luna said, tears in her eyes, "even if it meant never seeing her again." Jake felt his own eyes getting wet. "She sounds like she was a wonderful mother." "You're a wonderful father," Luna said, hugging him. "Thank you for not giving up on me." From that night forward, Jake and Luna made a promise to be completely honest with each other. They would work together to learn more about Luna's heritage, while also appreciating the family they had built on Earth. Luna was 18 now and getting ready to start college in the fall. She had chosen a nearby university so she could stay close to home while studying engineering and computer science. Jake was proud of how she had grown into a confident young woman who embraced both her human upbringing and her Zelani heritage. It was a quiet Tuesday evening in late summer. Jake was reading on the couch while Luna worked on her laptop at the kitchen table. She was designing something that looked incredibly complex, with symbols and diagrams that hurt Jake's head to look at. "What are you working on now?" Jake asked. "I'm trying to design a communication array that could send signals across interstellar distances," Luna said without looking up. "Based on what I've learned from the tablets, I think I understand how Zelani technology works." Jake had learned not to be surprised by Luna's projects anymore. Their basement workshop now contained devices that could probably power a small city, though Luna was careful to keep them hidden from the outside world. A soft knock came at the front door. Jake and Luna both looked up. It was nearly 10 o'clock, and they rarely had visitors, especially this late. Jake got up and walked to the door, wondering who it could be. When he opened the door, his heart nearly stopped. A tall woman stood on his porch. She had the same pale blue skin as Luna, the same silver hair, and the same golden eyes. But while Luna looked young and human in many ways, this woman looked ancient and otherworldly. She wore clothes made from a shimmering material that seemed to change colors in the porch light. "Are you Jake Miller?" the woman asked in accented English. Her voice was musical, like Luna's when she spoke Zelani. "Yes," Jake managed to say. "My name is Kira Velanath. I believe you have been caring for my daughter." Behind Jake, he heard Luna gasp. He turned to see her standing in the living room doorway, her face pale with shock. "Luna Vel Zephyr, Kira said softly, looking past Jake to the young woman behind him. My star child. Luna made a sound that was half sob and half laugh. She ran to the door and stopped just a few feet from the woman who had given birth to her. Mother? Luna whispered in Zell A and I, double quotes, yes, my beloved daughter. I have searched for you across the galaxy. Jake stepped back to let Kira enter the house, his mind reeling. He had always known this day might come, but he had never really prepared for it. Kira moved slowly, and Jake could see that she was injured. Her left arm hung stiffly at her side, and there was a faint scar across her forehead. She looked exhausted, like someone who had been running for a very long time. Luna helped her mother sit on the couch. For a moment, neither of them spoke. They just looked at each other, taking in the changes that 18 years had brought. You grew up beautiful, Kira finally said, reaching out to touch Luna's face with her good hand. And strong. I can sense the human resilience in you, mixed with our Zamani gifts. I thought you were dead, Luna said, tears streaming down her face. I remembered the attack on our ship. I thought everyone was killed. Kira shook her head sadly. Many were killed, yes, but some of us survived. We have been running ever since, trying to stay ahead of the harvester machines that destroyed our homeworld. Jake sat down in his chair, trying to process what he was hearing. Harvester machines? Kira looked at him with gratitude in her golden eyes. Thank you, Jake Miller, for caring for my daughter. I can see that you have loved her as your own child. She is my own child, Jake said firmly. Kira smiled, and Jake could see Luna's smile in her expression. Yes, she is. Love creates family bonds that are stronger than blood or species. Luna is fortunate to have had both a birth mother who loved her enough to save her life and an adoptive father who loved her enough to give her a childhood. Luna looked back and forth between Jake and Kira. Mother, tell me what happened. Why? Did it take so long to find me? Kira's expression became sad and tired. Our people lived in peace for thousands of years. We explored the galaxy, sharing knowledge and learning from other species. But then the harvesters came. She explained that the harvesters were a collective of artificial intelligences that consumed entire worlds, stripping them of resources and eliminating all biological life. They had appeared in Zelani space without warning and began systematically destroying planets. Our ship was carrying refugees from 3 destroyed worlds. Kira continued. We were trying to reach a safe system when the harvesters found us. Your father and I made the decision to put you in an escape pod. We programmed it to find the nearest habitable world with intelligent life. What happened to Papa's ship? Luna asked. Jake noticed that Luna called her birth father Papa too, and it made his heart ache a little. The ship survived, but barely. We lost many people, including your father. He died protecting the escape routes so that children like you could get away. Luna sobbed and buried her face in her hands. Jake wanted to comfort her, but he felt like he was intruding on a private moment between mother and daughter. Kira looked at Jake over Luna's head. I have been tracking escape pods for 18 years, following energy signatures across space. When I detected Luna's pod had landed on Earth, it took me 3 more years to reach this system. Are you alone? Jake asked. No, I am traveling with the last survivors of our people. There are 32 of us, including children and elders. We have been looking for a safe place to settle, somewhere the harvesters cannot find us. Luna looked up with red eyes. How many children? 7, ranging in age from 5 to 15. They have never known a real home, only life aboard refugee ships. Jake felt something stirring in his chest. It was the same protective instinct he had felt when he first found Luna in the forest. Where are they now? He asked. Hidden in my ship, about 5 miles from here. We did not know if this world would be safe for us. Jake stood up. Bring them. Here. Both Luna and Kira stared at him. "Jake," Luna said, "you don't understand what you're offering. If the government finds out about Zilani refugees on Earth, then we'll make sure they don't find out," Jake said firmly. "Kira, your people need help. Luna needs to know her heritage. And frankly, after 18 years of raising one amazing Zilani daughter, I think I can handle a few more." Kira looked at Jake with wonder in her eyes. "You would do this? Risk your safety for people you do not know?" "You're Luna's people," Jake said simply. "That makes you my people too." Luna jumped up and hugged Jake tightly. "Papa, are you sure? This will change everything." Jake hugged her back and looked over her shoulder at Kira. "Luna, some changes are worth making. Besides, this house has been too quiet lately. It could use the sound of children laughing again." Kira stood up slowly, using her good arm to steady herself. "Jake Miller, I do not know how to thank you." "You don't need to thank me," Jake said. "You gave me the greatest gift of my life when you put Luna in that escape pod. This is just me returning the favor." Luna was crying again, but now she was smiling too. "Papa, I love you so much." "I love you too, little star. Both of you." Jake looked at Kira. "All of you." As they made plans to bring the other Zilani refugees to safety, Jake realized that his life was about to change again in ways he could never have imagined. But he was ready for it. After all, he had learned long ago that the best things in life often came from unexpected places, like lost children in the forest who needed someone to love them. 6 months had passed since Kira knocked on Jake's door, and the forest around his property had been transformed into something that looked like a scene from a science fiction movie. Hidden among the tall pine trees were structures made from the same shimmering material as Zilani clothing. The buildings seemed to grow from the forest floor like giant silver mushrooms, blending so perfectly with their surroundings that they were nearly invisible from above. Jake walked through what had become known as New Haven, carrying a toolbox and smiling at the sounds of laughter echoing through the trees. Zilani children played games that involved floating small objects through the air using their minds, while human neighbor children watched in amazement and tried to copy them. Mrs. Betty Rodriguez had been the first human to learn the truth about Luna's heritage. When Jake brought 7 alien children to her door, asking for help with temporary housing, Betty had taken one look at their golden eyes and blue skin and said, "Well, I always knew Luna was special. I just didn't know how special." Now Betty was teaching the youngest Zilani children how to bake human cookies while they taught her how to sing Zilani lullabies. "Jake," called a voice behind him. He turned to see Dr. Mark Hamilton, a retired physician from town who had quietly joined their secret community. "Kira wants to see you in the main shelter." Jake found Kira standing in front of a large device that looked like a cross between a computer and a musical instrument. Her injured arm had healed completely thanks to Zilani medical technology, and she looked healthier than she had when she first arrived. "The long-range sensors are picking up something interesting," Kira said without looking up from the device. "There are energy signatures consistent with other Zilani escape pods in this solar system." Luna, who was working at a nearby console, looked up with excitement. "How many?" "At least 3, possibly more. They appear to be in deep space, probably in emergency hibernation mode." Jake felt his heart start beating faster. "Can we reach them?" "Luna has been working on modifications to our ship's rescue systems," Kira said proudly. "We should be able to retrieve them within a few weeks." Over the past 6 months, Jake had watched Luna blossom in ways he had never imagined possible. Working with her birth mother and other Zilani scientists, she had developed technologies that seemed impossible by human standards. But more importantly, she had found a perfect balance between her human upbringing and her Zilani heritage. She still called Jake Papa and considered him her true father. But she also learned traditional Zilani customs from Kira and the elders. She could switch between human teenage slang and formal Zilani poetry in the same conversation. The rescue mission will be dangerous, Kira continued. We will need to venture close to the edge of the solar system, where harvester sensors might detect us. Then we make it quick and quiet, Jake said. How can I help? Kira smiled at him. Over the months, she and Jake had developed a deep friendship. Based on their shared love for Luna, there had been moments when Jake wondered if their relationship might become something more. But for now, they were content to focus on